If you had to pick between the two options here, you got your Roosevelts and you got your Mercury dimes. Which of these two do you prefer, Harry?
Buy your gold and silver online from SD Bullion. New customers get gold or silver at spot by visiting sdbullion.com/new.
Hey, good morning, Adrian.
Good morning, Silver Dragons.
Good morning, Silver Dragons.
Good morning, Harry. Good to see you.
Good to see you.
And looking at the case right off the bat, I'm noticing we got a nice little bit of gold here in the shop.
We do. We're able to buy some yesterday and Saturday. Got a little bit of restock on silver, thankfully, although our Eagles on the second shelf won't be until tomorrow.
You are out of silver eagles right now?
Yeah, well, remember last week when the price crashed, everybody came in and swarmed us.
So they're loving the eagles. It looks like you guys have a bit of rounds and bars in stock still. But actually the bars are looking thinner than normal.
Right, and that's still because we haven't recovered fully from the swarm.
Well, silver I feel like is a pretty good buy right now, but gold actually hit an all-time high recently. It broke the 2468. I think it was like $5 over that.
It's a hair down today, 80 cents, but the truth is silver's way outselling gold because, as I've said many times before, gold, I usually say near its all-time high, at its all-time high right now, but silver's still about half of its all-time high, so it's still regarded as quite the bargain.
And looking at all the stuff you got in the case here, you got half dollars, quarters, and you even have some of those coveted Mercury dimes.
They should be gone by the time we open after what you just said.
You know, can I just point something out here? Every time I come into your shop and look at the dimes, it's almost always out of Mercury's, but a bunch of Roosevelts available. And I got into it with a good friend of mine, Yankee Stacking.
Mm-hmm.
He loves the Roosevelt dimes because they have less wear. And he thinks that in the future, when the whole system crashes, people are going to prefer the Roosevelt dimes because there's more silver in them typically than the Mercury dimes. What do you think about that?
Well, there's no question about that. And then more profound would be the comparison between Roosevelt dimes and Barber dimes, which are always slicks. But the truth is, as we've talked about before, the Roosevelt dimes look exactly like the dimes that are in our pocket today. And so you have to be able to discern between what is silver and what isn't. Most of us who are in the stacking business or are stackers know that prior to 1965 they were silver. But if you don't know that, you have to wonder, is this a silver one or not? Whereas if it's a Mercury dime or a Barber dime, it's absolutely silver because they didn't come any other way.
And I get it, when you're trying to barter with this stuff, it's easier to tell if it's silver. If it's a Mercury dime, for example, you look at it, you immediately know. But his argument is that if the system crashes and collapses, that people are gonna know, okay, I look at the date or I look at the edge, and they'll be able to tell that the Roosevelts are silver just as easily.
Except that the dimes are so thin that it's not as obvious to all that it's copper nickel because of the thinness of a dime versus, say, a tarnished dime that might have a dark look to it too. But overall, I mean, they're both very desirable for different reasons, perhaps. One because it never was in copper nickel, the other because it's got more meat on the bone. But they're all good. And frankly, when we run out of Mercuries, which is all the time, then of course, the default is the Roosevelts, and then they go.
If you had to pick one to either accept as barter or use as barter, which would you personally prefer to have?
I think the quarters are the workhorse in our economy currently as far as change goes, and it'll buy more in a barter situation. You know, it'll buy a gallon of gas or maybe a little ammo or a couple of gallons of water. Otherwise, there's really no difference. It's all proportional in terms of the amount of silver and the price. But I like quarters. I like half dollars too. I love Franklin halves. Just kind of feels colonial to me. And it's a bigger coin. Big seems to sell. But for whatever reason, Mercury dimes are just very, very hot right now.
Yeah, so you would actually prefer the half dollars of all the different types of junk silver, really? If someone was going to offer you a Barber half or a Washington quarter, Mercury dime, what have you, you would always go for the half.
Well, think about this. If someone were buying something from you in real life, say it was $60 and they wanted to pay you with ones, $1 bills, you'd accept it, but it's a little bit inconvenient, a stack of ones. But if they pulled out 20s, they're going to pull out 1, 2, 3. And so I kind of think of it that way, where, you know, a bag of groceries now is going to be $60 or more. So dimes are fine, but half dollar gets you to $60 a lot quicker.
Yeah, wow. All right. So Harry actually would prefer the halves, not even the dimes. What about you, Adrian? What would you prefer if you had to pick one type of junk silver to either barter with or receive as payment?
I think the quarters, because it's something in between the half and the dimes. Kind of like what Harry's saying, you know, people, if they think of change, they default to quarters. You know, 4 quarters equals $1, and just something psychologically that quarters has that people think really understand. I prefer quarters.
So which of the quarters? Do you like the Standing Liberty because it's obvious that those are silver, or do you like the Washington quarters?
I guess either one of them, but the Washington quarters is what came to mind when I was thinking about them.
Wow, this is so crazy. Because, I mean, I would prefer the dimes, and I would prefer the Mercury dimes, but neither of you guys would want to have that.
Well, I wouldn't turn them away. It's just not as convenient because of what they can and can't buy.
Because think about it, in a barter situation, do you want to worry about these 10 loose coins or 4 loose coins, or, you know, 2 loose coins that we go with the halves? So I guess there's 2 sides to everything, right? But just thinking of being more compact.
Well, I'm going to press the issue because I got into this argument with my buddy, and we've been going back and forth on social media. So let's narrow it down to just the dimes. If you had to pick between the 2 options here, you got your Roosevelts and you got your Mercury dimes. Which of these 2 do you prefer, Harry?
Definitely the Mercuries.
Really?
Yeah, because it's just a much more interesting and storied design, and because they didn't come any other way but silver.
I'd say the same thing. The Mercuries are just beautiful. We can sit here and argue about the silver content. I mean, we buy them and sell them the same way. We don't weigh them when we sell them.
Well, this is one of his arguments, is that right now, all of these dimes are bought and sold by the face value.
Yes.
But if the dollar is gone, then the face value is irrelevant. Although I don't think it is, because people will still understand this used to be a dime.
Yeah.
It used to be 10 cents. But his thought is that people will actually weigh them for the silver content, and they would prefer one that's heavier to one that's lighter, because the silver is the only thing in there that's money.
Yeah, I mean, I do see that point because, back in the mid-1800s, when there was a lot of trade going on with gold, they would weigh out the pinches of gold and so on. So I can see that reasoning. But when something's been made into a coin and you know that it's 90% silver, I could see an argument for that point as well, but I think it wouldn't really matter.
I think in commerce, if you were using this for barter at a store or at some sort of a merchant's table out on the street, he or she probably would have a scale like Adrian's talking about. However, barter between individuals, a scale is probably not going to be readily available most of the time. And so you're just going to have to go by the coin itself.
And what you actually said earlier makes a lot of sense to me, that if you were doing a little bit bigger of a transaction, you're going to use something like the half dollars or the quarters. The dimes are more for those onesie twosies, I need a can of beans for dinner or something like that. So these here, I don't think people are going to be using them for the really big purchases.
No.
So it's not like you're going to have a stack of Mercury dimes that are considerably lighter than a stack of Roosevelt dimes. It's going to be one coin here or there. So it doesn't really matter if it's slightly off.
I think the only time you'll run into a problem won't be because a coin is too worn, but maybe it's damaged or has a hole in it or something where the person receiving it thinks ahead, gee, will I have trouble spending this? So as long as the coin's not damaged, I don't think there's going to be an issue.
Well, here's the thing. I have an idea. What if we weigh out a Roosevelt and a Mercury dime and see what the difference in weight is and what the melt value between the 2 is?
Okay.
See what the big difference is.
Okay, this one's kind of worn, so that'll kind of speak to the point. And this one's pretty AU looking.
Let's take a look at them. So we have a Roosevelt dime that's pretty nice, looks basically brand new, and a pretty worn Mercury dime. I mean, even part of the date seems to be worn off. Yeah, let's weigh them and let's see. So we got 2.3 grams on the Mercury dime. Okay.
And the nice shiny Roosevelt,
2.4 grams.
so 1/10 of a gram.
So it is slightly heavier, but let's see what that comes out to price-wise.
So it's 4/1000ths of an ounce difference. Comes out to 11.1 cents. There is a difference there, to be sure.
All right, so a little over 11 cents in today's purchasing power. We did pick out a Mercury dime that was pretty worn, and it was only 4 or 5% less silver than the Roosevelt. I don't know. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference.
It may not, or maybe the real difference will come is if you have some slick barber dime, and someone says, well, I need 2 of those. It's not a regular dime.
I think if you can barely even read what's on it and it's clearly much thinner, then maybe someone would care.
Yeah.
But again, you know, if you're going to be purchasing something bigger, it's not like you're going to give them 20 Mercury dimes. To your point earlier, I think you give them 4 $half. I think that's smarter.
The same argument might be able to be made with $half, although not as easily. Franklin halves usually aren't too worn either, but if someone, say, had a barber $half, for instance, you know, look how worn that is.
Oh, yeah. That's going
versus,
to weigh considerably
you know,
less.
I mean, someone may take exception to that as full value.
Yeah. I guess for me, I would prefer to have the Mercuries because they're more obviously going to be silver every time. I think for most people, that's a little more important than making sure you have the exact full weight that the coin should be. If you're weighing all your options in an apocalyptic time, you kind of want to have money that's obviously money.
Yeah, I see your point. Somebody gives you a handful of Mercury dimes, you don't even have to spend any time looking at them, right?
Yeah.
Whereas Roosevelt dimes, you'd have to kind of turn them on the edge. It's kind of like when we're buying too. We get a collection of stuff in, we're making sure that they're silver, and it does take us a lot longer to pick the Roosevelts out than the Mercury dimes. So yeah, there is a point to what you're saying.
Yeah, so if time is a factor, right? If this is like zombie apocalypse, end of the world, and you need to make these transactions quickly or watching your back,
or
maybe,
trust, you know, simply just trusting, right?
Yeah, the trust factor, and you build that trust with this person, but also it's just going to be a faster transaction. So that's another factor. So we went through most of the junk silver, but what about the silver dollars? Because I think people know that these are slightly heavier, like 2 $half is going to be less weight than $1. What do you think these would do in a collapsed system?
In terms of just acquiring these versus $half, 2 $half would be $21, $10.50 each, right? And I think our price on these at $29 is a very good price. However, even though there's a little more silver in one of these than in 2 $half, I still think to acquire these for barter is probably not your best move because you're paying right now a bit of a premium for a collectability.
Yeah.
Versus just stacking silver. While it may be a nice thing to use in a barter situation, right now acquiring it for that purpose, I think, is expensive.
Interesting. So the $half would be better to buy, even though you got to use 2 of them. It's just going to be so much cheaper to get them right now.
At least right now, that's the situation.
On the other hand, though, think about $1, right? So now we transact so much in whole dollars. So my other thought would be, would people be more comfortable trading in silver dollars than, you know, 50-cent pieces or 25-cent pieces or 10-cent pieces that are silver? I don't know. Like, maybe that might have some of a higher premium if we were in that barter situation.
I think it definitely would have a higher premium just because there's more silver in it. Like if people are actually putting every single coin on a scale, they're going to notice right away the dollars have a little bit more silver. Even if they're worn, sometimes they'll still be more silver than 2 $half.
And let's admit it, it's just got a cool factor. Like, quarters are cool, dimes are cool, but a Morgan dollar or peace dollar is like, it feels like a nice chunk of silver. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. If I was accepting junk silver for payment for something, I would definitely
think
go
about
for
this.
the dollars.
You got this, got a bag of rice or something. You got this guy with his 10 Mercury dimes, or you got this guy with his 2 halves, but there's this guy with this peace dollar, right? And that's your last bag of rice, and you need some type of form of payment. Which one of those 3 are you going to take?
I'm probably taking the peace dollar.
There it is. There it is.
I think we figured it out.
And just to clarify, Adrian's point, 10 dimes or 4 quarters or 2 half dollars, the weight is 0.723, at least as minted. A newly minted dollar has 0.773 troy ounce. So there is a legitimate difference in the weight.
Yeah, and I think people would realize that, especially if they're weighing everything out.
Yeah.
But again, to your point, the cost to acquire them right now is so much more than the half dollars. It's probably better to be getting the half dollars.
That's my opinion, if you're buying it for a barter situation.
Well, there we go. I mean, we went over basically all the different versions of junk silver for barter. We went over a lot of different scenarios, but I know everyone out there is going to have another opinion, so feel free to put them down below in the comment section.
Buckle up, here they come.
Yeah, and we can argue about it down there. But hey, thanks for the time, Harry.
Thank you, Silver Dragons.
Yeah, thank you so much, Adrian.
Stacking, guys. Thank
Yeah.
you.
Definitely the Mercuries.